everyone. I meet with a lot of potential sellers who would like to make a move but aren't sure how to handle all of their stuff. So today we're going to take on that topic. I'm LaDawn Sperling with Coldwell Banker Realty, and with me today is Christina Brenlinger, owner of Googie Down. One of my sellers recently hired Christina and her husband Mark to help with this, and I was so impressed that I knew I had to introduce her to all of you. Thanks so much for joining us, Christina.
No, thanks for having me, LaDawn. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be able to get some information out to people, hopefully get them some direction so they can get started.
This is going to be so amazing. So let's start with learning a little bit more about your company, Googie Down, that you own with your husband, Mark. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Like you said, my husband, Mark, and I own our business. We've owned it, well, technically with a federal tax ID and the whole bit for 14 years, but we've been helping people downsize and liquidate for about 20 years. By trade, my husband and I come out of financial services. So we were corporate people. I was an executive officer for a couple of financial companies. My husband worked for a financial bank, and he lost his job in 2006 when everybody else did.
Yeah.
So, and I continued to work, but we had actually about 20 years ago started helping our family downsize and liquidate. And 20 years ago, liquidating your things was
a lot different.
It's hard today, but there was not a lot of resources and a lot of information on it. So anyways, it kind of organically grew from there. And then about 14 years ago, I decided to leave my job and we formed our business, and we're the epitome of a small business, family run small business here in Denver. So since then, we've just started out working with, our realtors that we knew, and then referrals from family and friends until what it's grown in today.
That's fantastic. So how about telling us about the name Googie Down?
Yeah, I know it's a tricky. I have a lot of kind of a cute little story. Lots of potential clients or my clients will Google because they think my name's Google, and they're like, I can't find you. You're good. So it's Googie. So Googie is a real term. It's a dictionary term. It's a mid-century term used to describe mid-century modern architecture. And you'll find that most people will say mid-century modern, right? But Googie came from, it's a Southern California term, started in the late 1930s. And it's from a restaurant called Googie's. So anyone that's from Southern California will probably remember. And the term just stuck. So you'll find the diehards, will say Googie. They write books on Googie. And here in Denver, as you know, being a realtor, we have many beautiful and fabulous Googie neighborhoods with some amazing mid-century modern architecture. So I grew up in a mid-mod. My parents built it in Lakewood in 1962. We still own it. So we just always had a passion for it. And, we just was like, oh, that's kind of a kitschy name. So, and it stuck. But I do get called Google. I get called Boogie. It doesn't matter what you call me. Just call me.
Exactly. Same. I feel the same.
Right, exactly.
How about, what advice do you have for someone who's thinking about downsizing and has a lot of stuff?
Yeah, it's overwhelming. Oh, totally. It's really hard to start because people are just so overwhelmed with their things. I'm overwhelmed with my things. But I have moved. Yeah, it's really hard. I know we're going to get into a little more detail, so I'll keep this really high level. But the best piece of advice is there's experts and people out there to help you. So and naturally, the very first thing that people normally do is worry about the stuff they have to get rid of, and not the stuff they want to keep. And that's natural. That's what we do. Everybody's worried about the stuff. So best piece of advice is there are people like myself and like you that do this for a living consistently over and over and over. So we're here and available to help. Yeah, and someone who is going through the giant task of liquidating a home that they've lived in or inherited 60 years, 50 years worth of stuff, there are people out there to help. Don't do it on your own. Don't do 100% of it on your own. So that is the first piece of advice is, it's stressful in it. It may be stressful through the whole process, but it'll be less stressful when you rely on resources and you get some help. And maybe it's not even hiring somebody, it's friends and family, so don't do it alone. Don't do it in isolation. Rely on experts or family and friends.
And I feel like sometimes people feel like their house has to be empty and ready to go before they call me. And I wish they'd call me earlier so I can help direct them to some of these resources who can help them. Don't take it all on your own because
Right.
there are people who can help you.
Yeah,
We can help provide some guidance.
definitely. And sometimes when people start to do that without getting some guidance or feedback or information, they are donating and throwing stuff out that has potential value. Because
Mhm.
that's another reason why, someone hires a realtor. My level of expertise in selling my home is nil. Couldn't do it. I need an
Mhm.
expert. Same thing when it comes with your things. And people who grow up and hear constantly from family members, oh, this is worth so much. It's not. And then something else that they throw out is, so
Mhm.
yeah, you start at the very beginning before you do anything. We call it doing your due diligence, right?
Yes.
And you're gathering information and you're getting, my job is to educate and provide information and knowledge and empower people to make decisions, what
Mhm.
they think. And that's part of that process, right? We're meeting with them. You haven't, gotten rid of anything, and we are able to collectively assess with them and have a conversation. So they feel better, we're
Yeah,
taking away some of that stress, and then they're getting
exactly.
information. Yep.
How about what's the first step in the process? When someone calls you, what is the first thing that happens?
Great question. I'm going to take two different passes, this
Okay.
approach. The first question we normally ask is, are you still living in your home?
Mhm.
Are you moving? And if the question is, yes, I'm moving, then we start to navigate down that path. Okay, so you're going to be moving. You know where you're going, right? Or you have an
Yeah.
idea of where you're going. The second one is, if you're not moving, okay, we need to start kind of mapping out a plan for you, right?
Mhm.
In both those situations, the very first thing I advise my clients to is, have you gotten your family involved? Your
Yes.
children, your friends, extended family, start to go through and decide what you're going to give to family and friends and what you think you want to keep. That really is super critical before you meet with a liquidator. And the reason is, a liquidator doesn't want to know what you're taking because I'm not going to sell it.
Uh-huh.
A realtor, a liquidator really needs to know what you need to sell, because that's how I'm providing you information and letting you know what your options are so you can make a decision how to move forward with selling things, right? So very first step, getting your kids and extended family involved. And that is really hard. I mean, that is,
Yeah.
and you probably know when you're working with older adults, that's challenging. Because, I'm guilty. I'm one of those kids, who left all my Barbies in my parents' basement.
Yes, yes, me too.
They're still there. Even though I own the house,
I think my
they're
mom may
still
have
over
moved
there.
mine to my house at one point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're moving, those are the things that you can do right now. Even if the question is, no, I'm not moving yet. I'm starting the downsizing process. I'm going to meet with some realtors. I'm
Mhm.
thinking about in the future. Great. We have a full year or whatever, 6 months for you to start mapping out. If your children are local, great. Have them over for Sunday brunch, and then have a box and go through the house and have them start putting those things in the box, and then they can carry it to their car and they can take it home.
Mhm.
If they live out of state, start to make videos on your phone or inventory lists, send them out and tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. I need you to identify what you want. And then you identify it, and then you start to get it to them and get it out of the property. That's probably my number one thing that I have the conversation with, when people call me about, hey, what do I do? I got all this stuff. Because the last thing that everybody, myself, you, the realtor, the person moving, and family, is for that to happen at the end, because it
Yeah.
causes more stress, unnecessary chaos and banter between everybody,
Mhm.
and nobody can do their job appropriately, right? It messes up
Right.
timelines, it causes frustration, people are scrambling. And even though kids object to taking things because they have their own homes, they don't have any space, when they learn a liquidator's involved, oh, the emotions kick in, right? Oh my gosh,
True.
don't touch my Barbies in the basement. I want my Barbies. I
Yes.
want grandma's whatever. So
Mhm.
getting those conversations at the very beginning is going to help everybody in the long run. So that's probably my most
Yes, and you
number
don't want
one
to
piece of advice.
accidentally sell something that someone wants.
No, it's just, yeah. So don't
Yeah.
throw anything out and get with your children. I will not normally meet with a client until they have about a 90% idea of what they're giving away and keeping, right?
Okay.
Because then it's more beneficial. Because
Mhm.
then if I come out and they have not gone through that process, and then we're opening cabinets and boxes and rooms and they just say, I don't know, we have to come out again, right? So it
Okay.
didn't benefit
Yeah.
anybody. It wasted just time, and it didn't help people progress in the process. So starting that process it can be challenging. So but I definitely say it's great when kids identify stuff, and then the next step is they need to take it. So if
Yes.
they're local, go get some
Yes,
boxes and
because it's
tubs.
so challenging to make sure that we
Yeah,
know which kid is getting which stuff when we're
right.
listing the house. So
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes
mhm,
sticky notes are good.
mhm.
Sometimes,
They don't look that great in the real estate photos.
no,
So
but if they're going to get it out ahead of time, yeah. And actually,
uh-huh.
sticky notes can be good for a liquidator. So when we're going through the on-site visual assessment, then
Uh-huh.
we can visually see, okay, everything with the sticky notes, it's going great. That makes it a little easier. If somebody's challenged and can't really, walk around and articulate what's going to go. So, but I'm sure in your world that probably comes up a lot. Oh, my kids, I need to get the stuff for my kids. My kids aren't
Yes.
taking it, at friends and family. And listen, going through this process ourselves multiple times with our own family, oh gosh, it is hard. It is hard to get your kids to get stuff, but it's very critical to do that up front. Get
Mhm.
all that taken care of.
How about what are some of the different ways you liquidate items?
There's a variety. So when we meet with a client, when the time comes, when they're, 90% there to bring liquidator out to assess, we are assessing a visual assessment collectively with the client,
Mhm.
the quality and the quantity of items that they have. And based off that, in consideration with other things, privacy is a big issue.
Okay.
Location, gated communities, time
Mhm.
frame, realtor concerns, all that type of stuff. Then we start to talk about, um, you know, what the best options would be. Available here in Denver, there's a few readily available to anybody. Some include hiring a professional, some might be just doing it yourself, but
Okay.
there's public on-site estate sales.
Uh-huh.
So that is when a liquidator comes into your property. They go through everything, they sort it, stage it, price it, advertise your sale, open up the front door, and the public comes in and out, 2,
Yep.
3, 4 day period, right? That's called an
Mhm.
on-site public estate sale. There are what's become very popular since the pandemic and since COVID, which are called online auctions, online estate auctions. They run very similar. State
Okay.
liquidator comes into the property, they go through everything, they prep everything, they photograph everything, but the only difference is we use an online auction platform to
Uh-huh.
upload everything. And then we push the sale out as an auction, and people, the public, bids on it, right? It's a bidding process,
Okay.
similar to eBay, but
Yeah.
it is different. And that way the public's not coming in and out of the house all day long. They
Uh-huh.
are registered bidders on an auction platform with a valid credit card, and they're bidding on the items. The auctions run, 7 to 10 days. People pay, and then there's a scheduled pickup on site. So those are
Okay.
great for folks who live in gated communities, areas that the public can't come in, condos, townhomes, and
Mhm.
privacy. So like I said, since the pandemic, that obviously if you wanted to survive in our industry, you had to adopt that
Yeah.
methodology. But since then, I will tell you, most of my clients and folks, realtors and attorneys, they love the privacy behind online estate auctions.
Mhm.
It's non-invasive to someone's property. You don't have issues about theft. No one knows the address. A lot of my clients are like, I just don't want my church friends coming in my house. I don't want my neighbors in my house, so both have pros and cons. And we normally educate the client and give them all the information. I don't tell them what to do. We let them make a decision based off, their personal
Right,
whatever they're
exactly.
gonna do.
Mhm.
We also do estate buyouts. Not everybody does that, few and far between. There are times that we will meet with a client, there isn't much left. Maybe they have dispersed a lot of the belongings to family and friends, or maybe they just didn't have a lot. But there could be a handful of items that are sellable. They don't constitute really going through that liquidation process, right? You
Okay.
know, through an
Mhm.
online auction or a public sale. So we will manage a private, sometimes we call them private estate sales. We'll bring in a couple dealers that we work with. We work with a lot of dealers here in Denver, but, and we'll get it sold for them or we'll buy it out. So it just
Okay.
kind of depends on the situation and what they want. Then they, you know, we pay them for it, or our dealers do, and it gets hauled out, and that can be done very quickly. Like an online, you know, an on-site estate sale or an online auction, those can take 2 to 3 weeks. An estate buyout can do 2 to 3 days. Pretty
Okay.
fast, quick and easy. And we
That's
do a
really
lot of
helpful.
those. Yeah, a lot of those.
How about, are there some items that are easier to sell than other items?
Yeah, so in our market, and this is a conversation when we do that on-site consultation and we're doing
Uh-huh.
the assessment, we like to educate our clients about, I call it what's hot and what's not. You know, what's hot right now in the Denver market and what's not. Because at the end of the day, their items are being sold here in Denver, not
Right.
New York City or not
Mhm.
California. They're being sold here in Denver. So, and we're a pretty particular market right now. We're a thriving mid-century modern market. We have been for 15 years. It's still thriving.
Good.
And to give folks out there watching, that mid-century modern fell between the late 1930s up into about 1970. So you're talking about a lot of the Danish modern furniture, Lane, Drexel, a lot of stuff
Mhm.
people probably got when they were married in the 50s and 60s. Any toys within those decades, collectibles, you know, vinyl albums, music, a lot of Art Deco is creeping in right now. We're seeing Art Deco. Jewelry always sells really good. Native American is creeping back in, like pottery and jewelry. But yeah, there are a lot of things that are hard to sell. Pianos. So, you know, a lot of our clients, I'm sure you've come
Yeah,
across
we
that.
can't give those away sometimes.
No, yeah, it's really hard. And people, you know, people attach, even though their house is where the money is, the emotions are attached to the stuff, right?
They
And
are.
so giving away grandma's piano or the piano that
Mhm.
I took lessons on, it's hard. It's really hard to hear that, you know, that
Yes, my
the
mom gave
market
away
doesn't.
her piano and I was annoyed, and I don't even play the piano and I didn't want it in my house, but yes.
Emotions, yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
yes.
So, yeah, there are definitely, our job is to know the market. As you, a realtor, you know the market, right? You know, we sell things, that's what we do all day long, every day, every single day of the year, year over year over year. So as, you know, we're appraisers also, and I know we're going to talk about that, but our job is to know and understand market demand here in Denver. And we understand who's buying what and how much for. And so trends come and go. And the trends for antique furniture, heavy dark wood
Mhm.
furniture, piano, um, you know, like we're all guilty of it. Either we grew up with it or our parents bought it. Oak Express furniture from the
Yes.
2000s,
Mhm.
you know, all that kind of stuff. Yes, those are really hard to sell. Sometimes those are great items for the client to try to sell themselves. You know, maybe they
Okay.
could put it on
Mhm.
Facebook. And some of those items you can't donate anymore.
No.
Can't donate a piano, you know, everybody's moved into the digital world, you know, schools don't use them anymore. Churches have moved to the digital environment. So, yeah, so, you know, that's our job to kind of walk through our website. GoogieDown.com has a whole section on what's hot, what's not. We'll do a
I love
tutorial.
that section of your website. That is so helpful. The photos there really give people an image of what sells and what doesn't sell. I found that so helpful.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and not to tell people that, hey, you can't liquidate if you have stuff that doesn't sell.
Mhm.
That's not true. You know, when we approach a liquidation, we try to sell everything but the kitchen sink, right? We attempt to do that, but we like to provide full transparency for a client too, honesty and
Mhm.
transparency. We wouldn't be doing an ethical job if you know, if we said, oh yeah, I'm going to get $2,000 for your piano. when it's going to be leftover. So there is that's part of that process of we walk through collectively, we're assessing the items and we're educating. And I'll find probably, 9 times out of 10 with our clients, you'll see a light bulb and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I would never think that was valuable.
Yes.
I've always been told this was valuable. And, things change. I mean, like if you just turn on the television, watch any decorating show, watch any television or movie, you don't see antique furniture. You see all mid-century modern or bohemian
Yes.
70s, or we're seeing some 1980s creep in. So, the market follows the trends. So,
Mhm.
but definitely everybody needs to expect that they're probably going to have some items that are just not super desirable,
Yes.
mixed in with stuff that is.
One of my clients had a Lane coffee table in her basement that I took photos of, asked someone what it was worth. The person I talked to said $150. So I offered her $150 for it. And she said, that old thing, my husband bought it at a garage sale for $15. I'm like,
Right.
well, you did great on this then.
Right. Right. I love it. That it does warm my heart when, we come into someone's house and they're just blown away that we're like, oh my gosh, no, this is all super desirable and
Mhm.
sellable, when they're
Yeah.
just like, no, and just even the smallest little thing in a cupboard, that could be worth $100 and they would have no idea. So it's
Yeah.
another great example in this conversation of why you want to meet with a professional early on before you
Mhm.
start chucking stuff out, just so you can make your own decision, whatever works for you. Yeah.
And you and Mark are also appraisers, correct?
We are appraisers. So, in the beginning, I mentioned that we do a variety of services. We do the liquidations and we do estate buyouts, and half of my business is also appraising. So we are estate appraisers. The majority of that work is for fiduciaries. So a fiduciary could be your parents passed away and you're the personal representative of an estate. You have been appointed a trustee. You are a trustee. You could be you're helping a friend, or anyone that power of attorney, when someone is still living, and then you turn over into the probate section, and then court appointed work. So probate work, you and I have worked with some special administrators,
Mhm.
right? Who have to
Yeah.
come in and they take over and do everything. So,
Mhm.
and those situations are pretty specific. When I get when I get a call from somebody to do an appraisal, I ask, a lot of questions. Appraisals are expensive. And
Okay. That's good to.
they're really for a couple things. If your attorney, a state attorney or court has ordered you to assess the value of the contents, actually you have to provide full
Mhm.
assessment of everything, right? But one of
Okay.
those is what we call tangible personal property, and that's the things inside your house. And
Mhm.
sometimes people have to provide the court with a value on that. So I get called in from fiduciaries or whomever to come in and to do an estate appraisal. In rare cases, that's someone, maybe we have some high net wealth, over 12 or 13 million that's going to have to pay federal and state taxes. We also do it for that. And then other times we do it to settle family disputes, which I just did one of those where, hey, the family thinks it's worth this much. People are arguing, the
Mhm.
court steps in and says, okay, we'll settle it with getting an appraisal. And then other times people need it for insurance reasons. However, nowadays, most of your insurance policies probably have enough coverage for your items. But if you're needing to get an addendum or a rider on it, then that would be necessary for you to get an appraisal on something. But when I get a call for somebody who actually is going through the downsizing process or will be going through it, and they're interested in knowing kind of the value of things, that's part of the liquidation process. Because
Mhm.
when you liquidate and you sell your items, there's your value.
Yep.
And
The
you
market is
don't,
on you.
yeah, and I wouldn't charge somebody, the $90 an hour to give an appraisal and then turn around and sell it. Because sometimes they're not equal. You get an appraisal because that's a snapshot of a specific time of a value, and then you turn around a year later and sell it, might not sell for that. And it's like a house, right? You sell your house. They were selling for this at one point, and today they're not selling it for that.
Uh-huh.
So,
Right.
we normally is like, hey, let me walk you through. If you're just interested, you could be your own novice. I'll give you some websites. I'll tell you how you can go and kind of assess the value of your items. We'll
Mhm.
walk them through those kind of, really simple tools. Or if they're going to liquidate, then normally, then they don't need it. Then they understand why they don't need it or whatnot.
Okay,
But
that makes sense.
yeah, definitely. So, yeah, it's really specific because they are expensive. An average appraisal for just an average on what 3,000 square feet, maybe,
Uh-huh.
23,000, can run somebody $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay,
And that's a
yeah.
lot, I mean,
That's not
and if
really
they don't need
necessary
it.
if you're selling it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to do that because sometimes those numbers will not be equal. And if you're selling it, you're going to get a report of everything that's sold and what it's sold for. You turn that into court or whoever, and that will satisfy what the value of the tangible personal property was at that time.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good to know.
yeah.
How about what are some things that people think might be worth money that are not really worth money? Like I think of the Beanie Baby craze where everyone thought their Beanie Babies were going to be worth money and they are not.
Right.
So
And we go back to the pianos, the
some of
ones
those
in
things.
the heavy, really heavy, anything, anything that you can look at it different ways, but anything that, someone wouldn't buy. It's
Mhm.
soiled, it's worn, it's
Mhm.
broken, it's used, it's moldy,
Yeah.
no,
So
those
what happens to that stuff if it can't be sold? What do you do with it?
great question. So there's a variety of options for people to clean out an estate.
Mhm.
The most obvious one is what you and I would probably just call junk hauler, right? 1-800-GOT-JUNK, a
Right.
green recycling company, any of those places. They charge a fee and they'll come into your property and they'll remove much anything that you want them to take away. And then based off what they're taking away, they'll make a decision on where it goes. Is it going to go to the dump? Is it going to go to donation? That type of stuff. So we generally after somebody who has liquidated, right? They've had some type of liquidation sale.
Mhm.
If it was a good one and they're working with a credible liquidator, they're not going to have a lot left over. There's not going to be a lot left over.
Okay.
So the task of cleaning out the property should be fairly easy and inexpensive. But people who are not going down the liquidation process for whatever reason, maybe there's no time, or maybe, there are situations in which we work in estates where unfortunately, someone had smoked in the property for 6
Mhm.
decades. That's really challenging to sell those items. You can't donate those items.
Challenging to sell that house too.
Yeah, water loss, mold, animals,
Okay.
name it. Okay, so those would just be a mandatory junk haul. You got to get somebody in there and get it
Mhm.
out. Charity's great. Charity's available to people. I will tell you, within the last year, they have moved to a paid pickup. Goodwill
Okay.
is a
Good
paid
to know.
process. You can actually, when you're at Goodwill and ARC, they talk about, hey, do you need like a full house clean out? We partner with local junk haulers. It's a paid fee. So yes, charity is still available for people. In my heart too, I think it's great. They're great things to donate to charity, and there's some things that are not. Clothing, excellent. Common household wear is excellent. But charity has become challenging for a lot of people who have not tried to donate to charity. It can be hard.
Very
They
hard.
do pick and choose, when you drive
They
up and you
don't want
load
your
up.
flowered sofa.
Yeah, they won't. And it's not because charity's bad, it's because they are in a business of selling. And
Mhm.
so they will not take in goods, just like we talked about what's hot, what's not. They're
Mhm.
not taking in the what's not items either. And they know,
No.
because they know what sells and what doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And they don't want to take up prime real estate on the floor to try to sell items that don't sell. And
Mhm.
so it can be hard. And our clients who, after we've liquidated, we talk about it. Most of them go down the junk hauling route, right? Because
Right.
you got to get the house on the market. Time's a ticking, right? That's
Mhm.
where the money is the house. And so to delay the process, to try to piecemeal stuff out to charity, personal choice, but my recommendation normally based off what's left, which is normally not a lot, is let's get a junk hauler in there and just get it out of there. And they are required in the state of Colorado a junk hauler because all of them have to be registered green now. They are required to try to donate, recycle, whatever.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, unless you're working with a local guy that doesn't, not licensed or whatever, but all your big junk haulers, they are all required to do that, because taking stuff to the dump too is very expensive. And that's why your cleanup fees are expensive, because they pass that through, right? I mean, labor intensive work and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, in some cases, there are some estates that there's no choice. You can get a dumpster, sometimes they'll get, if the realtor is going to be doing work on the property anyways, and the guys in the house are, working on it, have a dumpster, that's an option as well. So, but you definitely have choices. Most of our clients go with the junk hauling route. Yeah.
Okay. And then this is a question that I didn't give you ahead of time, so I'm just throwing this out there.
Okay.
I just thought of it. What if someone is still living in the house and they want to start liquidating items while they're still living there? Do you do that?
We do. So that's when I go back to the options of liquidation. So someone who calls me, yes, I know where I'm going. I'm moving into retirement community. This is when I'm going. I know what I'm taking. Great. They're going to be out of the property. A liquidator can come in. The property's empty. What's left behind is for sale. Great. Best option. But we do have some folks who know, I'm just starting the process. I'm not ready to move, but I know what I want to sell. Right. I have it already. My family's taking everything and I have it. Then the only option at that point for somebody would be to do something like an online auction, right? Or would be to buy an estate buyout. So when we meet, we talk about that. Those are some of the criterias, hey, here's your options. Because I do not do public estate sales when somebody's living in their home, because they're living in their home and you can't open. Yeah, and you can't open up the doors and have hundreds of people in and out when the client has personal items commingled with items for sale. It's a safety issue. It's a security issue. Gosh, I can't even think of any of my peers in this industry would do that. So
yeah, I don't think anyone would, probably.
No,
but sometimes I do have clients who know they're moving out of state, but they're not leaving town until the house is sold, but yet we need to get rid of a lot of stuff. So
yeah, and so
talk through those logistics with you.
You would want to do those options before you list and stage and list, right? Because sometimes when because a lot of work goes into you guys preparing the home for sale and you stage it. To do an auction, we come in and pull things out of the cupboards. Any liquidation, cupboards come out. Things are piled up, things are moved around, TVs are disconnected. You don't want to show a home.
Yeah, we would want to do all of that before we put it on the market. But they may still be living there with minimal stuff.
That's okay. We can isolate it out. We have done that before. We isolate it. There might be piles of things or whatnot, but the public's not in there. It's private. The public's at the property for one day for pickup, it's like a 2 to 3 hour window. We're there to manage it. Yes, that is a solution for those. And that's another reason why I think the online auctions are becoming more and more popular for those reasons too, because a lot of people need the equity out of their house to move somewhere.
They do, yeah.
And they don't have an option of moving out of their house. We have some clients sometimes that we've done multiple sales for them. And they started a process. But you want to make sure when we do that, we have to make sure we have enough stuff. So we just don't want to set up a liquidation sale for 10 items. We want to make sure it's pretty meaningful, that we're going to go through the process. There's enough there to get enough interest, and they're going to generate at least $2,000 to $3,000 because there's commission to pay a liquidator commission. So sometimes, but if we're working over a year or 2 year period, we have definitely done that before. Or we go back to, depending on what it is, an estate buyout. Estate buyouts, we don't buy pillows and, common household goods. It's really more, like the lane table, it's going to be the items that are sellable, meaningful, they have value, and the rest of the stuff can be donated. So, but a good liquidator is going to tell a client all of this, right? Hey, and let them choose what they want to decide, staying away from a liquidator that comes in and be like, oh, I'll take care of everything. I'll sell everything. And then I'll haul everything out for you. No, that's not the reality of the world. That's not how things work. No, someone's always going to have stuff that doesn't sell and people are going to have stuff that sells. It's just what we live and how we live.
It is. So there's a lot of different emotions involved in this with a lot of different family members. Tell me a little bit about how you handle all of the emotions involved in your work.
Yes. I mean, I can't unless we have fiduciary work, right? That's an attorney.
Mhm.
I, the first thing, to tell everybody is if you're working with anybody, especially a liquidator, they have to have empathy. I
Mhm.
mean, I have been through this personally. We've had many deaths in our family of, sisters and parents, and close friends. So from the second I get that first phone call to the time we start working with a client, it's just full empathy. I've been there. I've gone through the emotions. I have moved myself across country and come back, and I have been a mess.
Yeah.
So, understanding the emotions, knowing that your things, like I said, you attach your, so much to the things. I saw something on TV the other day, and I think they were talking about downsizing, and it really struck a chord in me, in that people have 50, $60,000 vehicles they park in their driveway because they have all their stuff in their garage. They would rather park their
Mhm.
$60,000 car in the driveway versus getting rid of the stuff in the garage so they
Mhm.
can pull the car in the garage, right? It's just
Right.
emotions, it's painful. So, I think the very first thing is, obviously, to let people know we've been through this process. We know, we understand it is going to be hard. And it
Mhm.
might be harder before it gets easier when you go through this
It will be.
process,
Mhm.
right? And so let's be proactive. Let's stay focused. Let's help them, depending on what stage they're at the downsizing process. We're there to map out a plan for them, and we're there to hold their hand through the process.
Mhm.
We're a partner in this along with someone who's been through it. So we understand. Sometimes we had some good cry sessions with people.
Yeah. I just
They
had a good
lost.
cry session with a client.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it helps if you've been through it. Not that people who have not gone through this process, are not, but when you have, you really understand the pain behind moving. If it's a forced move or just downsizing, it's challenging. And you normally, when I get a phone call, most people don't know what to do, and they've never been through it, right? Because it's not something
Right.
you're educated on. You're not educated. You just don't
No.
know. And so, having an ear, having some understanding,
Mhm.
at the same time, making sure that we're very transparent and honest. Because you can have a lot of empathy, but yet take someone down a path of emotions because that's what you feel like the right thing is. But, we need to balance that with, hey, we want to have a really honest, open conversation, right?
Mhm.
Of what you have, what you own, what you need to sell, and
Yeah.
what we think it's worth. And, make the proper recommendation. And that could lead to, yes, hiring us or not, but that's not the point. We've done our job to educate and inform, and show some understanding. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, and then, it can be challenging though. So, we're out there, we give it all to, we put everything we in for our client, and in return, yeah, our clients are there to balance that on their side, right?
Mhm.
So we've had a lot of family meetings. Literally, we have, I'm thinking it's probably 10, 15 years ago that we had to we mapped out a plan for every person in the family on a calendar, and we had a family meeting because it was a lot of fighting. It was a lot of, nobody would show up to do what they needed to do. So, I was like, hey, we need to do this for your parents. Right? I'm in this too. So we mapped out a plan. We gave everybody the plan. Here's your date. This is what we're doing. And boy, did that help. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did. Absolutely. Christina, I have just loved working with you and Mark, and um Googie Down is just such an important part of of my business and someone who I really trust working with my clients. So I just want to thank you for your time today.
Of course, anytime. And we'll end it that if you or your clients are just even a little sliver of maybe I need to start doing this, phone conversations are great.
Okay.
FaceTimes are excellent. We don't always
Mhm.
have to go out on site. We can wait for that to happen until they get a little bit further in the process. But if you are meeting with somebody and they're talking about it, let's jump on a phone call, or let's text some questions. Let's get them right at the beginning to let them know that we have that empathy and we're here to
Exactly.
help, and getting them some help. to start the downsizing. Yes.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest lesson here for everyone is call us early. Don't feel like you have to do all of this yourself. Don't feel like your house has to be cleaned out before I come over to see it, because we have lots of resources who can help get you to the closing table.
Yes, I mean, you can even benefit from staging the house with stuff, you
We
know, so
can. Done that before.
absolutely. I always think that, wouldn't you like to know if your stuff has value? And wouldn't
Yes.
you like to hear that from a professional
Mhm.
versus your daughter, your son, or your neighbor? You know, I mean, like, which I value, trust me, we all have them. Everybody has an opinion, but you know, I would want to know, hey, here's really what you're looking at so I can make a good
Mhm.
decision. And then that is just one of those things that takes away a little bit of the stress. So
Yes.
you got it. Thank you for doing this. I think this
Thank
is great to
you.
educate people, and hopefully we'll work together soon again.
We will. I'm sure we will. Thanks so much, Christina.
You're welcome. All right, take care. Bye.